6,000 cadets. Cadets, come up here. Come on, you guys. Here comes your future of Los Angeles. It's dedicated, it's diverse, it's smart, it makes important decisions. I said come up here, you guys. We're not, yeah. There you go. I'd like you each to introduce yourself and tell us where you go to school. And go ahead. To them. I got you.
My name is Kaylee Alvarado, and I go to Granada Hills Charter High School.
Okay.
My name is Georgette Holon, and I go to Polytechnic High School.
My name is Jeanette Holon, and I go to Polytechnic High School.
To where? Oh, Polytechnic.
My name is Kara Glazer, and I go to Nobel Middle School.
Good for you.
My name is Eliezer Yaimak. I go to Patrick Henry Middle School.
My name is Sarah Allen, and I go to Granada Hills Charter High School.
My name is Kyle Grubbs. I go to Granada Hills Charter High School.
Every one of these kids is in a school, and like all of our kids or grandchildren, there's so many ways that they can go off course. There's so many things so many influences on them to do the wrong things, and these kids make these choices, and we're so proud of them. And there are, Chief, how many cadets do we have in the program?
We have 6,500, a little over 6,500.
6,500 cadets at the graduation ceremonies, which they have over by USC at the Galen Center. 10,000 people come to each graduation, where there are 500 or 600 cadets in the class. So we're proud of you guys. Like to know where you get your dry cleaning done, because you got great ironing there. But thanks for coming up, and we're proud of you and happy we're here. Well, I mean, that's if you ever need it. Thank you. Let me introduce Richard Tefang. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, let me, before that, let me introduce a guy and first tell a story about him, because when I first came on the police commission, he and I had a chat, and from that chat and discussions with the chief came the thought of adding on-body cameras to police officers here far before the President of the United States said, and now Hillary Clinton and everybody else, saying that they need to be on every officer in America. And Mitch was a really great go-to guy, because not only was he positive, but he's got the experience to know as a reserve officer. But so many people in his business are tentative, and he wasn't at all tentative. He said, let's do this, let's figure it out. And because of that, we're probably 2 years ahead of the curve of any other big city. And so I would like to, I'm honored to be in your hood out here, and appreciate everything that you do. Come on up.
Yes,
no?
Yes,
now?
sir.
There it is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I would rather be here with the people down here on the
That's just
on the
what
floor.
you're saying.
That's right. First and foremost, I got to thank you. They can't see me, but you can hear me?
You can turn around and face your people.
I'll just keep walking in circles.
There you go.
Let me thank you. The Police Commission, by the way, this is revolutionary, and having a police commission, a citizens oversight commission for the people, by the people, of the people, our eyes and ears, the things that we care about, the things that are important to the people in Los Angeles is what the Police Commission stands for. First created back in the 1920s. one of the very first departments and agencies of its kind to have that. The men and women of the Police Commission, and I want to thank our commissioners that put in, quite frankly, more volunteer hours than virtually any other commission in the city of Los Angeles, often working 50, 60, 70 hours a week on our behalf for free. And they dig deep into all the issues and make sure that there's always a balance and a reflection of each community in the city of Los Angeles. They oversee so much in policy and the direction, and we're blessed to have our Chief of Police, Charlie Beck, here as well. Let's give him a round of applause. We're in a unique situation, and it's not often that we're so honored and blessed to have a police chief, not only in our presence, but one who works tirelessly, has dedicated his entire life to this city and this department. He is a cop's cop and a people's people. He's got people, so he's a people's people. He's a person. But he's an incredible human being that really does care so much about individuals here in Los Angeles. And I get the opportunity as the chair of public safety, not only to oversee what happens within the department, but I get the opportunity to sit down with this chief on a regular basis, one-on-one. And let me tell you, that opportunity is truly a privilege. And all we do is talk about the department and ways to improve policing for this city, to prevent crime, intervention and prevention programs. And he constantly fights for more tools and more resources and the best and the brightest for the department on all our behalf. And it's remarkable because he's always got all of our best interests, number one, at heart. So I want to thank you, Chief, for everything you do as well.
Thank you, Council.
Yes, let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. I also want to thank, it's not often that we get a lot of the commissions coming out to see us and meet with us. And that access to local government is so critically important that we have a voice at the table, and that all of you do as well. And so I want to thank you for taking the Police Commission on the road into the communities to listen to all the people throughout Los Angeles, and I know you do that regularly outside of all your regular time. This is an unscheduled, if you will, meeting. You usually meet on Tuesday mornings. And so you're out there in the community going 465 square miles within the city of Los Angeles and every square inch of the city to meet with people, to listen to their ideas, their concerns, their thoughts, and hopefully once in a while their gratitude as well. So I want to thank you for taking this on the road and going to all the communities. And last, I want to thank the folks here in Devonshire and our partners in Topanga. It is so unique. And I think Commissioner Soboroff, President Soboroff, you said it best. This is a special community. This is a community that says, how can we help? This is a community that we go through, and this is, and I hate to label it this, but we have been the epicenter of disaster here in the Northwest San Fernando Valley. From earthquakes to horrible, horrific train accidents to annual fires. We're sitting right now here in not only a sanctuary, but this has also been a reunification center. It's been a homeless shelter in those times of fires. What you have all, and I've seen many of you here helping to volunteer and bring aid to not just our first responders, but community residents. This is a community that when there is a major disaster, all of these folks from our VST to our CEMP, we have so many volunteers here, our neighborhood councils that step up and show up and participate all hours of the night. They bring blankets and clothes and food and shelter and, more importantly, compassion. And that's really unique, not just to Los Angeles, but to almost any major metropolitan area. You don't experience that. People typically run away from danger. This community runs towards it and says, how can we help? And for that, I thank all of you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Let me introduce Mr. Tefank, who will tell you his what he does for the Police Commission and your background as well.
Very good. My name is Richard Tefank. I'm the Executive Director for the Board of Police Commissioners, and in that role, I'm their Chief Executive Officer. It's my responsibility to ensure that the business of the Police Commission is done on a regular basis. As it has been said, the commissioners are here on Tuesdays for a meeting, but they certainly spend much more time doing other kinds of community meetings and other meetings that they take part in. So when they're not in the office, it's my responsibility to run our office to ensure that the commission's business is carried out throughout the city. And in that role, I liaison with the chief of police, his chief of staff, and the other members of the department to ensure that the reports that the commission directs the department and the department has to provide to them on a regular basis come to us. I prepare the agenda, work with our staff to do that. And then I also liaison with the mayor's office, chief administrative officer, chief legislative officer of the city, and as well as the 15 council members. I'm a regular attendee at Councilmember Englander's Public Safety Committee every other Friday, second and fourth Friday of the month at 8:30 in the morning, and he is there, by the way. And it's the opportunity for our work that we do at the Police Commission to come to Councilmember Englander's committee. He has Public Safety Committee, has the Police Department as one of his departments that he's responsible for. He does a great job in managing all of that for us, and we appreciate all of his help. Also, we operate in the Commission office with a number of other responsibilities. All the police permits that are issued in the city of Los Angeles for 55 different types of permits come out of our offices. They include permitting of all auto parks, parking lots, valet operators are now permitted in the city, a variety of other types of businesses that we permit. We manage all of the official police garage contracts, 19 contracts, through our office, and a number of other responsibilities that are centralized in the Commission office for efficiency and unification of enforcement. If we have 21 different areas and we had these dispersed through 21 different areas, it would take a lot more people to do it than we do centralized in the Commission office, and it's done in a universal way throughout the entire city. I've been with the department now, be 12 years in December. My first position was an assistant inspector general in the inspector general's office, and then 6 months later I became the executive director, where I've been since June of 2004. I am in my 47th year in law enforcement. I had just about 33 years as a police officer in 3 different police departments. I was a police chief in 2 departments, Pomona for 3.5 years and Buena Park in Orange County for 11.5 years. After I retired, I went to work for former Attorney General Bill Lockyer. I worked for Bill for 2.5 years prior to coming here. And so that encompasses my time in this profession. And before that, 4 years in the United States Air Force. So I've had 51 years of government service throughout my young life. Thank you.
Wonderful. The Inspector General works for the Police Commission, and he's here tonight. I want to introduce him. And Inspector General, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do for the Police Commissioner for the city.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Alexander Bustamante. I'm the Inspector General for the Los Angeles Police Commission. I'll give you a little bit of my background. I'm prior military as well. I was active duty Army. After that, I was a federal prosecutor for about 10 years, doing everything from organized crime to civil rights prosecutions. And then I've been in this position for about 3.5 years. My office is essentially the eyes and the ears of the Police Commission. I'm the investigative arm for the Police Commission. I do all the civilian oversight over the police department, and under the city charter I have access to all the locations, all the documents, audio, video that's within LAPD's custody, and I have the ability to initiate investigations on any matter and present them to the public and to the Police Commission, my boss, so that any issues within the police department that need to be addressed can be addressed by the Police Commission, and any alterations to existing policy can be done. I have about 40 individuals in my office. The bulk of them are prior law enforcement. I have attorneys and the like, but we're broken down into 3 sections. The first section is the use of force section. We review the department's use of force. We also, on serious uses of force, will go out to the scene of the shooting or other incident, and then we will monitor the investigation all the way to the point that we make a recommendation to the Police Commission on how things should be adjudicated. We also look for trends, identify those trends, and bring them forward in public reports so that the public, City Council, the mayor, the community at large have an opportunity to see a little bit of what's going in within the department. My second section involves an audit and inspection arm. We routinely audit the department's operations, and we can audit in any area that the commission would like me to, whether it's a constitutional policing issue or something involving risk management. And we will again report those publicly during open session commission meetings on Tuesdays. And the last section I have is a special investigative section. That section is designed to try to identify issues before they come to the surface and focuses on big, rather large systemic issues that might require the Commission's involvement. We work with the community in identifying issues that they believe exist within the department. We also work with officers within the department if they believe that there are issues that need to be addressed within the department. And most of my work is made in the form of a public report, like I said, in open session so that everyone can see what we're finding and, more importantly, can engage with their civic leaders in an effort to be able to address some of these issues.
Okay. Before I introduce the chief, two things. One is we do have public speakers can speak during public comment period. Some people have also chosen to speak during specific, in response to specific agenda items. I think we have a speaker on this agenda item.
2 speakers on item 1 and 2 speakers on item 2, and they're both Wayne and Mr. Herman.
So will you gentlemen come up and as Wayne is not here? Okay, and before Mr. Herman comes up, I do want to say that this Saturday, you can see one of our helicopters, our SWAT team, our K-9 team, our bomb squad, our motorcycle drill team, because at Warner Center Park in Woodland Hills this Saturday at the 12th annual LAPD car show and safety fair. And I just wanted to give that a shout out and what it signifies in a bigger way. And that is we are a community policing police force. And many people in this audience know because you know your local police officers. And that's what we work under. Chief Beck has turned this department into probably the envy of the nation when it comes to community policing. We have programs after programs, outreach after outreach at different stations and throughout the year. And I'm sure the chief will talk about a couple of them. So let's hear from our speaker. You have 2 minutes.
Mr. Soboroff, formerly when you did not know about God, to be any God, you were a slave like I, too. These who by nature are not a God, but are persons. We are your constituents. Thank you, sir. And we acknowledge a fear from authority when the abuse of the color of authority doesn't acknowledge public's concern or public interest. Throughout this meeting, any person can speak on any item regarding the agenda, more so on public comment, as I refer to it under the Brown Act, 54950 to 54963. Some of you do not know or are unaware of your sovereignty rights under Ralph M. Brown Act. So to acknowledge why the violence in our communities exists, why to ask the questions, our health and safety is not preventable, corrected, or should I say, are we being segregated by law enforcement as to where we place our officers to safeguard the public? I would really like to know, because I know on many occasions, because of my situation living throughout the state of California, and specifically living in Los Angeles as a stakeholder and your constituent, I say to you, I fear you that you somehow one day will know I have wanted my efforts on record with you, adjudicated for the purpose of giving all of us equal rights, no segregation, and no racist actions in the word, the law, the state of California constitutional law. Thank you.
Who was the second speaker?
Mr. Herman on item number 2.
On item number 2, Herman, you're up again.
Well, Mr. Herman's walking to the microphone. If anyone needs a Spanish interpreter, would you raise your hand? We do have someone here who can help you out with an electronic device. So if anyone does need a Spanish interpreter, please let us know. and she is up here in the front, so thank you.
This is on the comments from Council Member Englander.
Well, Mr. Englander has placed a disaster recovery book for you at the back of the hall here, along with a carry bag. I wish he'd really spent money on more important things such as the infrastructure of your sidewalk and streets, which we, the public, the American Disability Act, successfully beat the hell out of the city of Los Angeles for $1.4 billion to repair.
Mr. Herman, you're not giving a speech to the people in the audience. You're talking to the commission.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if you
I
would,
forget.
I can't hear you when you're facing the other way.
Oh, I forget.
So if you would come up to the microphone and do what you're supposed to do, you know what you're supposed to do, so please do it. Go ahead.
Well, again, these are my neighbors, my stakeholder friends that we try to protect each other in our communities. When we see something going wrong, like the African American that spit on my car on the freeway today when I called 911 on the 101 leaving LA, that was horrible. I felt like catching up to that fool and really doing something about it. But that's a different issue. What I'm trying to say is Mr. Englander's running for county supervisor in 2016. Until he fixes our sidewalk and streets and make them safe, provide adequate policing in every community, more so up here, because this is where the influence of the dollars roll, brother. The money is here. I live always in Boyle Heights with Mike Fuhrer and his family. We were neighbors. So I can relate to being poor, and I can also relate to being articulate and fruitful in the eyes of God in this temple. But right now, this is a business that we're conducting on behalf of the public. So I suggest that Mr. Englander get on the ball and provide better services for policing in our areas, in our communities, and have better neighborhood watch meetings so that we can all attend and have someone really take action and listen to us instead of having someone else from the community come there and really respond. Like
Thank you.
That concludes the comments for item 1 and 2.
Okay, so item number 3 is the report of the Chief of Police. I want to say that in the 30-some years I've been involved in doing things in Los Angeles, last week was something that really was a real honor for me and really touched me, and that was I was honored to give the Chief of Police his 40-year pin for serving the city of Los Angeles. And saying that, I just want to say in people speak, I know when somebody cares about LA, and I know when somebody cares about whether it's police officers or community members or kids or any group in Los Angeles. And we are really fortunate to have Charlie Beck as our Chief of Police. He has stature nationally, but his love is for this city and the different communities in this city. And it's a real honor to have Chief Beck as our chief. Chief, welcome, sir.
Well, no, thank you very much. Thank you. First, it's an honor to serve the city and the people of the city of Los Angeles, and it's such an honor that I've done it for 40 years now. I've worked only at one agency, the Los Angeles Police Department. I've been able to keep a job.
You guys didn't apply against each other for Buena Park, did you?
No.
Okay.
No, this will be the only police agency I ever worked for. This will be my last job, and it's an honor to do it. You know, this is a great city. We go through tough times, like any city does, but the resilience that we have, the ability to move forward no matter what, really makes this job a pleasure to have. So. Just a little bit about me. What I plan to do is I'm going to introduce a couple of my key people from the department in the audience and let them talk a little bit about the state of the city and the state of the valley. I know that you're all interested in that, so I'm going to have them do that part, but let me just give you a little overview of the city of Los Angeles. So obviously the city of Los Angeles is the second largest city in America. We are the third largest police department, smaller than Chicago, smaller than New York. We have 10,000 sworn officers, a little over 3,000 civilian employees, about 400 reserves, and one of them is sitting in the front row, the council member Englander, who is a tremendous partner in public safety and gives also so much to this city. We're divided into 21 geographic areas. Those 21 geographic areas are overseen by a captain, many of whom are here, and I'm going to have them introduced in a minute. Those geographic areas are further divided into basic car areas, and those basic car areas are overseen by senior lead officers, and many of the senior lead officers from the Valley are here today. Those are the people that are your direct contacts to fix neighborhood issues, just as your captain is your direct contact to fix larger issues in the greater neighborhood. This police department has been very successful at reducing crime in the city, although this year we've seen an increase in crime from last year. It's a significant increase so far this year, but a lot of it is tied to issues that are outside the police department's control. But nevertheless, we will continue to strive to reduce crime in this city. The good news of all that is the Valley has the smallest increase of any area in the city. You have a significant decrease in your homicide rate. You have a significant decrease in your theft rate, but you do see an increase in some other areas of violent crime and an increase in general property crime. But that's over last year, and last year was the lowest year that we had experienced in many of those categories since long before I was a police officer. So while we have things to work on, things are in general going very well. We introduced a couple of things this year. One of them is caused by national issues in policing. As all of you are well aware, trust between the community and the police is becoming a huge issue nationally, so much so that I went to Washington to testify in front of the President's Commission on 21st Century Policing to talk about building trust and building community trust. We've made that a goal for this year to ensure that we increase the trust level and the partnership between the Los Angeles Police Department and the communities that it serves. We have a number of ways that we're doing that. One of them that I'll talk about real briefly before I make my introduction so you guys can hear a little bit about what's happening locally is last night we reintroduced, after 34 years of absence, our Dodger baseball card initiative. And what that is every Los Angeles police officer will have Dodger baseball cards with them that they can share with families and with youth. And on one side is a Dodger player, in this case Adrian Gonzalez, and on the other side is a Los Angeles police officer. And we featured 20 Los Angeles police officers on the back of the first set of cards, and they are from every aspect of the Los Angeles Police Department. We have everybody from cadets to one for the chief of police, and every type of function in between. We've printed over 500,000 of these in the initial batch, all funded through my Police Foundation, which is a nonprofit, and the Dodgers. We will have another batch of 500,000 with 20 new officers on the back coming out in a couple of months. And all of these are designed to build relationships in policing. When I was a young officer, it was the first time that we initiated this program. And when I was a young officer, I worked in South Los Angeles, and it was a difficult time between the community and the police there. And I can vividly remember driving down streets in South Los Angeles and having kids follow the police car to get these cards. And they would, young men and women would run up to the car to find out did we have the newest baseball cards. And so it became a time when they look forward to seeing us instead of thinking otherwise. And every time you share a little piece of the human experience with somebody, every time you give them something, even if it's not significant, it is to them. And you break down barriers and you build relationships, and that is a really important goal to me. Now, obviously, baseball cards are not the only way you do that, but they are one way, and a pretty good way. So you will see this more and more as it rolls out. But I hope that you share what's going on with young folks in your lives, and hopefully they will be able to go up to a police officer and get their own baseball card, and maybe many, many times. So with that, the structure of the Los Angeles Police Department is that the vast majority of services that you think of when you think of policing, everybody in the black and white cars, all the detectives that work in the stations, the captains, the senior lead officers, all work for what's called the Office of Operations. And there's an assistant chief that works directly for me that is in charge of the Office of Operations. In organizations on the East Coast, he'd be called the chief of the department, but of course this is a different organization with a different structure. And the individual that sits in that seat is George Villegas, and George, of course, was originally the chief in Valley Bureau, and I was very, very pleased to be able to promote George and put him in such an important position, because he had shown me that when he worked Valley Bureau, he was more than up to the task. So George, if I could get you to maybe say a few words and then introduce your COs that are here.
So good evening. It's an honor to be here. Glad to see so many faces of people that we've worked together with over the course of the last 4 years or so when I was here in the Valley. I'll have you know that as I've been through the other bureaus in the city of Los Angeles, I'm proud to say that the Valley holds a very special place in my heart because of the time that I spent here and all the work that we've done together. So what I'd like to do is introduce Chris Pitcher. Chris Pitcher is the Assistant Commanding Officer of Operations Valley Bureau. He spent 4 or 5 years at Devonshire as the Commanding Officer at Devonshire, and he spent a number of years in a number of other commands in the Valley, including North Hollywood, if I'm not mistaken. And then the current Commanding Officer of Devonshire is Rob Marino. And we have Captain Alan Hamilton, who's the Commanding Officer of West Valley Patrol. And that's all that I see now. But again, I'd like to give the microphone over to Chris Pitcher, who can tell you a little bit about the state of affairs in brief terms in the Valley as it relates specifically to community relations, community policing, and our efforts at trying to reach out to the community.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chief, Mr. Inspector General, Mr. T-Fank. I am privileged to be here tonight to give the state of affairs for Operations Valley Bureau. Operations Valley Bureau, for those of you who don't know, comprises police services in the entire San Fernando Valley, consisting of 7 geographic police areas as well as Valley Traffic Division, which makes 8. We provide all of the police services here in the San Fernando Valley under Chief George Villegas and Chief Charlie Beck. First and foremost, crime. As the chief told you, Operations Valley Bureau leads the city currently in Part 1 crime reduction. We stand at 7.1%. That is the best of the reductions to date, and we're pushing further. That equates to 13,253 crimes. Violent crime is currently at 15.3%. or 1,836 crimes. Of those are the majority of those crimes are aggravated assaults, and of those 1,300 aggravated assaults, They are primarily comprised of domestic violence and family violence type issues that we are focusing on. You'll hear in a couple of minutes. Property crime is currently at an increase of 5.8%, or 11,400 crimes. The majority of those are attributed to theft, almost 3,800 crimes, followed closely by burglary, theft from motor vehicles at 3,800. We have experienced in the entire San Fernando Valley a total of 18 homicides year to date. We are down about 19% year to date. We are very happy to report. Operation Valley Bureau's goals are consistent with those throughout the rest of the department. Here's an overview of how the department in Operations Valley Bureau is focusing its efforts and resources. Our primary focus right now, as is the rest of the department, is upon crime reduction and community engagement, as we put an emphasis on community policing in every stop, in every arrest, in every investigation that we do every day. I'm going to give you a little bit of specifics about what the areas are doing here in the San Fernando Valley. Foothill area to the northeast is fully engaged in anti-gang efforts. They are working very closely with the city's gang reduction youth development program right now, and also the gang interventionists. We are having outstanding suppression and prevention efforts in reducing the gang violence in the area. North Hollywood and Van Nuys areas to the mid part of the San Fernando Valley and also the east are doing something very entrepreneurial. They are holding roll calls in the streets. They're out in the parks, they're out in the communities, they're out in the parking lots, and they're opening up the operations of the police department to the business and residential communities, letting them sit through our roll calls, listen to what we talk about, and then putting the officers out on the streets, letting them ask questions. It's an outstanding thing. We've had very strong reviews as to what they're doing. Devonshire, West Valley, and Topanga are doing something kind of extraordinary. They are doing what they call Operation Trident, where all three divisions in max deployment days will work in one division. You'll have Devonshire and Topanga working in West Valley, or all three of those working in Devonshire, or once again, all of those working in Topanga area. They get a chance to cross-pollinate, to talk to all the community members. They get everybody to familiarize Devonshire and Topanga with what's going on in West Valley, and likewise with the other two divisions. It's been an outstanding effort in familiarization with the personnel and everything that we're doing out in those areas. They work together, and they've had a big emphasis on crime. We have a couple of Bureau-wide task force operations that we have kicked off. Catalytic converters, of which we're on pace to lose about 800 by the year's end. However, we're going to turn that back. We have all of the divisions putting forth, working with some downtown entities, the criminal conspiracy section, and we are going after these people who are stealing the catalytic converters from everybody's cars. I'm not going to report the specifics, but we are going to stop that in its tracks. We're doing an outstanding job, and we should be able to report some fantastic results in the next coming months. The other effort we have is we've had a revisit from the knock-knock burglars. It's an MO, or a modus operandi, where burglars walk around the communities posing themselves as solicitors, advertisers, whatever, and when they find out somebody's not home, they make entry into that home forcibly. We have a knock-knock task force that we've kicked off throughout the valley, really aggressively investigating that and going after and serving search warrants and making some good inroads into that too, to turn back. Mission is doing something outstanding. They have an effort where they're working with all of the big box stores and major efforts to turn back the theft-related issues and the robbery run-out issues in the major box stores, working with security and also working with those individuals throughout management to help design the stores, to help provide better security, and to help curtail what we lead in terms of property in the valley, which is theft-related crimes. In terms of community engagement, real quick, Foothills conducted an outstanding days of dialogue with the community and the NAACP, faith-based organizations, community members, and they also ended that with a basketball tournament that they played. The officers played with the individuals in the community, had a great time, and that also developed some very solid relationships within that community. All of OVB, all of the areas are engaged in a community police academy where by year's end we're going to have trained over 250 individuals from the community in an 8-week session opening police operations, letting them know why we do what we do, what the philosophies are, so that they can take this information back to their communities and provide explanations and ask questions from the experts that are in that field all the time. All of the areas have CPABs, Community Police Advisory Boards. They're working together. Their focus this year is to address these community crime issues specific to those areas.
How many are there any CPAB members here tonight? Will you stand?
There you go.
Thank every one of you for what you're doing for Los Angeles. It's important. Our officers tell us all the time what a great thing it is to engage with the CPABs in every single one of the divisions. Thank you very much.
Mr. Commissioner, the CPABs have basically convened the first OVB CPAB Summit, where they've gotten together just with the Valley Bureaus, did an outstanding job talking about the issues that they're facing and also helping out the departments in each of the areas to address those crime problems. Mission is running another entrepreneurial community engagement issue called a Truth Series. And essentially what they do is they get up there working with the faith-based organizations, community organizations. They talk about truths about gangs, truths about drugs, the truths about domestic violence. And they address all of these issues on a continual basis, providing training to hundreds of community members on a monthly basis. This has been a very effective method of gaining inroads into the domestic violence issues that we're facing today. They also have an issue or an effort known as Operation Ceasefire. And so when people come out of probation or parole, the first stop they make is to a location set up by the parole and probation departments in conjunction with mission area detectives and command, and they talk about setting their lives on the right track, basically pushing them the right way, giving them the resources they need to get them back into the community so they don't become recidivists. And that's been very effective in bringing those people back from custody into the communities. Devonshire has been working with their 51-member police clergy churches and temples and synagogues all over the community in working to get the message out about domestic violence, getting behind those closed doors, making sure that they can get that word out so they can make an impact there. They're also developing with Cal State University Northridge the radio, TV, and film department, one of the first PSAs or public service announcements that is an anti-strong message against domestic violence that will be put shortly on cable and news, and also throughout radio. They'll be putting that on within about the next month or so, so you'll be hearing things about that. And then the last thing is the division has, or I'm sorry, the Bureau has all of the areas directing their CROW offices and their CPABs to partner in order to keep consistent with the department's goals to prepare the community individuals throughout the San Fernando Valley in disaster preparedness. They're working with LAFD, and they have basically provided CERT training or disaster preparedness training to over 500 community members through the first half of 2015, and they're going to try to double that by year's end. They're working with all of our CROWs, our SLOWs, all of the individuals throughout, and trying to get that out there to get these individuals prepared. So as you can see, Operations Valley Bureau is turning all of its resources strategically in preparing the individuals, protecting the individuals, and making a greater quality of life here for the residents of the San Fernando Valley. Thank you very much.
Chief, anything else? Okay. Do you have booster clubs also?
Yes, sir.
And are there any booster club members here? I don't want to not acknowledge the booster club members. And the other people I think that it's so important to acknowledge for each of us, and it's so easy to forget. There's some people in here that every time I see one, I just walk up to them and say, thank you for what you're doing. And that's the police officers of Los Angeles Police Department. And I hope will all of you please stand for us? finest trained police officers in America, the most dedicated police officers in America, who love their jobs and love the people that they serve. Thank you. Do we have any comments on?
We have two public speakers for item number 3, Wayne and Mr. Herman.
Will you guys both stand up at the same time so we don't waste any time afterwards? Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. You paint a nice picture of the valley. Now you're going to hear the reality of the valley. Twice in Reseda, my house was burglarized. They came through over the wall. I got video. I chased them around the corner. I got their license plate. I got a video of these crooks. Nothing. You do nothing. Nothing. All you have to do is trace the license plate, go over to the house that it's registered, and you'll find my 3 computers and my mother's jewelry that was robbed out of my house. Nothing. They will not do it. You know why? Because they don't have the resources. No, that's not why. It's because it's the valley. You don't need us for anything because this place is a hostage situation. It's beholden to downtown Los Angeles where you hold your regular meetings. So you don't fight crime. I mean, can you imagine? I've got the video with them getting in the car and driving off. Nothing. If you had a real police department, they would have been over there to the registered owner of that vehicle, and I'd probably have my stuff back. But now it's been since February. That stuff's on Craigslist or wherever it is. I can't even find it on Craigslist. I look and I hope and I pray some of it might be there. You do nothing. All kinds of people, victims of crime, you do nothing. You don't investigate, you don't protect, and you don't serve. And when we were in Venice, I went to the meeting in Venice. No police chief, and none of you guys were there except Mr. Soboroff. That's the reality.
Mr. Herman?
Last reading was from Galatians, Paul to the Galatians, chapter 4. But today I'm reading verse 16. Verse 16 of this chapter, this great book I found in this building here. I know that you've not become my enemy by me telling you the truth.
I put the chief of police up with the Bible too, but are you speaking about the chief? You got to stay on topic here.
Oh yeah, just an
can
intro,
you relate?
Sir.
I'd just like you to try.
So then, Chief Beck, really, are we investigating the scenarios of problems with crime? What about the hit-and-run capital of the world? We are become the hit-and-run capital of the world. As you see in this crowd, a majority of people are elderly. Even the gentleman in the wheelchair down there in the end is afraid to go around his neighborhood because the sidewalk and streets are not safe. That's a public safety concern to be addressed under the American Disability Act for us elderly and disabled. But when it comes to someone investigating you and going through your personal property, stealing from your home, and no law enforcement bothers to get involved, there's something wrong with the picture here. And I can't reason without a reasonable doubt that we need more protection in every community. I can't just say the valley. All enforcement must pick up and do and provide within the law. As I mentioned before at many of your commission meetings in downtown, there's a consistent harassment and retaliation by your sergeant of arms at public meetings, like when Paul Koretz attacked me and assaulted me. That's reality, October 2014, for the record. And what about our mayor, Eric Garcetti, when the Da Vinci burned?
Stay on topic, Mr. Herman.
That was a crime. That was a crime. That was a crime. So do your job and provide good police protection.
Thank you. Report of the executive director, Mr.
Already had all that, sir.
Oh, okay. And we had the report of the
We're ready
inspector
for
general.
public comments.
Okay.
We have one public speaker on item number 4, the report of the executive director, Wayne Spindler.
This is on the report of the executive director. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll stay on topic, please.
Wow. Look how they care. The executive director, now they care. Now they care. How many in the executive director you have the overview of responsibilities on burglaries? How many follow-up investigations are there in the San Fernando Valley? And what are the success rates of recovering stolen property in residential burglaries? And can we define a violent crime as being 3 people entering and breaking into a dwelling with the owner present in the home as an urgent crime? Or is that merely a property crime? So do you categorize an entry burglary forced into a home as a violent personal crime or as a mere property crime? Because if you take that as a property crime, it'll never see the light of day. But if it is a victim of a personal burglary, you have to realize something. I could have been, luckily, not in the house. I could have stepped out in the next room and been killed. I wasn't home. So, Mr. Executive Director that cares, when you oversee this department and you publish statistics that crime is down, it's not down. You only maneuver the numbers around in a way that takes certain violent crimes down and classify them as property crimes because that's the way you do your business. Because you give the false assumption that something isn't what it is. So, when there's a residential burglary, is that a violent crime or a property crime?
On item number 5,
We have 2 public speakers, Mr. Wayne and Mr. Herman.
might as well stay up there and finish up.
Oh, number 5, the Inspector General. Now, we've talked about this before. On the website, the Inspector General states that he oversees disciplinary matters, but that the Police Commission, under the Charter, cannot give discipline. I didn't know that. I was not aware of that, because when I went to the Police Commission meeting 2 weeks ago, Mr. Soboroff, you said, we are going to have a report to take up discipline on the shooting in Venice. But you can't, because the Inspector General and the Commission has no right under the city charter to give disciplinary actions to any peace officer sworn to duty. And I was surprised by that. How can that be in the Christopher Commission report that they suggested that the Civilian Oversight Panel is not in charge of discipline of the police officers? But that's true. Isn't it, Mr. Bustamante? Right? So what do? You can't do anything. You can write reports. You can take statistics. You can evaluate evidence. And you can look at the results, but you cannot effectuate actual decisions over police misconduct. So earlier in Venice, when Mr. Brandon Glenn got shot, originally the police chiefs came out and said, I don't see that this looks like to be a substantial incident warranting the use of deadly force. And then you backpedaled and you called the meeting in Venice and never showed up. That's the reality.
Mr. Herman?
Mr. Inspector General, I brought out in the past conflict of interest when you're sitting next to the chief command of the LAPD, or Men in Blue. No disrespect. But as brought out by the first speaker here, Mr. Spindler, everything he said is very conclusive evidence and proof and understanding. As I bring out in this publication by Mitch Englander in his booklet here, what other rights do I have or the public have from programmatic access? Did I pronounce that right, Steve? State and federal agencies, along with their contractors, have an obligation to reasonably modify their policies and practices and procedures in order to provide equal opportunity for understanding the law and understanding what a person's disability is, and to participate in the functions of commission meetings. Along with that, ask for assistance in filing out forms. The others are an appointment, so a person does not have to wait in a long line in a crowded, dark room in a police station. So again, if Inspector General, again, if Mr. Bustamante, if you're really taking accountability for classifying, having consistent oversight, and you really build up a matrix that gives us all the investigation list of the cause, effect, and the objection, then the public would know for a fact that you are in the safeguard of public interest. And that Charlie Beck is doing an excellent job without any bad rapport. But I'm sorry to say, Mr. Inspector, investigate the violent crimes towards people with disability with mental conditions. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you all in the audience for your patience. We will now open for our public comment period, and we'd love to hear from you.
Mr. Chair, we have one public comment for item number 6, Mr. Wayne. I'm sorry, 2, Mr. Wayne and Mr. Herman.
I know, it's a shame. I know, but I'm 45 friggin' years old, man. Something's got to be done. I've lived in this valley since 5 years old. 40 years I've lived in this valley, in this city, and something's got to change because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Now, you have these nice areas. You got the rest of the city and you got the valley. You go to Van Nuys Boulevard, Burbank, where I grew up, looks like a wasteland. This place over here looks like it looked in the 1980s and 70s when I lived here. Now the funny part is that this place is going to look like Van Nuys does today in another 10 or 15 years. And despite everything that happens, to the north of us, you have Canyon Country, you have the cities outside the incorporated Los Angeles. Take a look at those areas. Look at all those new homes. They're moving out. Everybody that can get out is getting out. It's true. And this could all be stopped if, for example, if our Valley Bureau got serious about it. If they really got serious about it and said, we're not going to let these people rob these houses. Over in Encino, on White Oak and Ventura, a very wealthy area, they are having a rash of residential burglaries. I got an email from the Encino Neighborhood Council to the effect that it's so serious, they recommend getting a security system and locking all of your doors and windows. Now that's how bad it is. And it's coming here. You've got to take this criminal situation seriously.
Mr. Herman.
Start the clock, please.
Yeah, you can start the clock. Because it's quite evident that the fine gentleman, Mr. Speaker, gave a good suggestion and many points of what's happening in your community. Don't forget, I grew up in Boyle Heights where Mike Fuhr, the city attorney now representing all of us, in public interest and to trust the public. So we're not at a loss in this. We're not. Because what we're indicating tonight to all of you is that you're not safe. You're not safe. Regarding police cars that sit with ghost officers, ghost cars running around on our streets parked, 7-Elevens, restaurants, no one in them. Is that a ghost car? So the question you have to ask yourself, why do I have to secure my home so secured? Why do I have to put cameras? Isn't my dog enough? No. Because the cycle of criminals today are hard up to take everything you have, what you have, and what I have, which is not very much. All we want is to live not like the old days of Van Nuys, which is no longer livable to some standards. But when I come over here, I feel the joy. I feel the love of money here. And that's what attracts me to come up here and have my lunch sometime, Mr. Sobra. Maybe you can pick me up in your white night car and drive me out here, and we can sit down and have a talk with the public and bring to their attention, as Mr. Spindler brought out, the report from the commanding officers in the Devonshire area and the operations of the Valley Bureau. Nuri, Burri, Duri. Yeah, Nuri, I hope you're listening, because Mr. Englander has news for you. I'm not going to vote for Mr. Englander when he runs for county supervisor. Thank you and good night.
Okay, thanks again for your patience, everyone. And now let's begin the public comment period.
We have 7 public comment cards. The first 4 are John Walsh, Joseph Pitt, Glenn Bailey, and Aaron Swartzhart.
Go ahead. And then who are the other 3? Walsh is not here?
Walsh is not here.
Okay.
Joseph Pitt.
Okay.
And what's your name?
Sir.
Glenn Bailey.
Okay.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Glenn Bailey. I'm president of the Northridge East Neighborhood Council, and I'd like to thank the commissioners, chief of police, and staff for coming up to the North Valley to be with us. I just want to make a few comments. I'm also a mayoral appointee on the City Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'd like to commend Chief Beck for establishing the Bicycle Liaison Group that's been going on for the past number of years, and for the other staff that are here that have been working on that, on issues of education, both to cyclists as well as motorists, to try to bring down the incident level and hit and runs, etc. So on those 2 subjects, first of all, with regards to neighborhood councils, which I visit a lot of them, and I do want to acknowledge the role of the senior lead officers in covering many of the neighborhood councils and updating the local boards and stakeholders on what's going on. That's in addition to the role of CPAB, etc. I do think, however, there's a role for the department to look at bigger trends similar to what you did here tonight, but do it with the leadership of the neighborhood councils at the regional alliances and at the citywide alliances. I know, Chief Beck, you have been to the LANC, the LA Neighborhood Council Coalition, but I think that maybe having that on a regular basis, I don't know if that's once a year or whatever, could be very helpful as we look at the trends, that not just drilling down in the local neighborhoods, but maybe for the entire region. Like the Valley Alliance Neighborhood Council is 34 in the city. And regarding the bicycle issues, we still have folks who are driving in bicycle lanes. Cars, that is. We have people who are, speeding, and that's an issue for everyone. But for a cyclist and pedestrian, it's if 45 miles an hour, an 80% chance.
Thank you. Good. Thank you, sir. Next.
Joseph Pitt.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out to the Valley. It's always good to come to these meetings. I wish more people would attend them. There's a lot of negative publicity on television, but that people that hate cops, but where are they? This is a huge church. You certainly could accommodate people who had their opinions. But in any event, it's you know, the LAPD is not perfect, but it's all we got, and that's why we have opportunities like this to come out and express our opinion. And to the police department's fluid; it's changing. And speaking of changes, Mr. President, I was curious to know if you have any updates on the Skid Road policies. I know in the past that there was going to be some updates. I know you have officers that are trained, and that we were going to make some changes to that. If there's anything vocal that you could express on that. And then also, speaking of updates, I don't know if the website's up to date. Living in the Valley, I can't make it out to the meetings on Tuesdays, but I just can't help but notice that the use of force reports seem outdated, the minutes seem outdated, and if there's anything you could add on that. And then also for the chief, not to beat a dead horse, but in light of what's happened with Solis and Dorner, I was just kind of curious to know if there's any public comments that can be made about the psyches of officers, and these are people that we trust, and then how things like that happen. Obviously, Dorner is an isolated incident, but obviously something that what goes through the psyche, and how just so quickly someone become wearing a badge, a symbol of trust to someone who's to be feared in the public. And, you know, in light of Solis, that's obviously, I guess that could happen to anyone. It's just a shocking incident that a Los Angeles police officer would do something like that. All the facts aren't out yet, obviously. It may be too early to comment on something like that. And thank you.
On the commission issues that you raised, I'm happy to stick around afterwards and speak with you personally. Okay? Next.
Aaron Schwartzhart and Valerie Collins.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Aaron Schwartzbart, driver of Motor Gospel Ministries John 3:16 race car. I'm excited tonight. Hi, how you doing? Exhausted but excited to announce hot off the presses our latest milestone in our ongoing cooperative work with Mission Community Police Station. We're going to, on Thursday, June 25th at 6 p.m. in the community room, we're going to have a racers panel discussion that will bring together speed freaks from all walks of life. The panel will include professional speed freaks from NHRA, NASCAR, and the National Autosport Association. It'll include representation from LAPD, Mission Station, Captain's Office, the City Attorney. Hi. There will be film and television executives on the panel and major league sponsors. The guests of honor, though, will be the amateur speed freaks, the street racers. At last count, VTD had given out, I think, had done 70 arrests on reckless and street racing and 900 citations for illegal modifications to cars. We're hoping a bunch of those people will be in the gallery at this panel. And if we can treat them with some semblance of respect while not pretending to endorse illegal street racing, those of us that are legitimate speed freaks at the track don't have a lot of respect for illegal street racing. But if we can show them that there's a place to do it, and they can hear a little bit of a risk-reward analysis from the pros on the panel, including major league sponsors that might even stand to sponsor the racers, but certainly not if they're racing illegally in the streets. It's our hope that they may move their motorsports experience from the sidewalk to the racetrack with us. Thank you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, sir.
Valerie Collins.
Welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for having us. Well, I'm just speaking with you because I'm actually 67 years old, and I've lived here since I was 2. And I'm lucky to live in the house my parents built in 1958. And the police department has been nothing but nice to me my whole entire life. And I have been pulled over many times. I was my father's nightmare. And for the last 8 years, I live at 17322, and my parolee house was at 17326. And it's no longer there, but I never saw any police officer step at a line and kick anybody in the head or shoot anybody.
I'll give you more time, but I want to ask you a question. You said you've been pulled over a number of times. Can you elaborate on each of those for us?
No, I had Daisy Dukes on when I was in my 30s, I think. That was
Just
one
wondering.
of my most interesting pullovers. But
in case we missed one, you know.
No. Oh, one time a police officer told me to get out of my car and walk home. Do you believe that? And you know what, every time well, he told me to run, and every time I stopped, he said, get moving. So the police department's been nothing but kind to me. I guess it depends on your attitude. But it does. And of course, my house has probably been robbed, but sometimes, you know, when you let your kids come in the house, you got to watch them. And the people that you invite in, sometimes they do look around and they know how to come back in if you make them too welcome and too accommodating and you don't keep your special things away. But again, with the Parolee House, they had many, many different people there, lots and lots of parolees. I mean, you guys are all used to them. But no one ever drug anybody out of that house. They were always treated with respect. And when we call, we're so lucky. You come right away. There's never ever a hold up. You come, even if it's just for the minorest things. So, thank you.
Thank you.
The final two speakers are Hunt Mitchell and Mr. Herman.
Mr. Mitchell isn't here. Mr. Herman?
All right. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, general public comment.
He did not have a card in?
No.
He didn't have a card in, so Mr. Herman?
We put it in as a card for Hunt, yeah. It's AK Hunt.
You didn't have a card in?
AK Hunt, that's what they put it in.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah, for AK Hunt.
Oh, you used a different name?
Correct. Yeah, anytime you want to turn this on. Okay. So, we have our councilman here in the 12th district. Interesting, he ran unopposed, got a new 4-year term, and now he's running for the 5th supervisor district. Now, he knew Antonovich was termed out when he ran for his re-election. In the event he wins, God forbid for the rest of the 5th district, which includes Pasadena, Newhall, Canyon Country, there'll have to be a special election to fill the seat, costing millions of dollars. Now, the man can run for what he wants, great. But we're paying him $178,000 a year now for him to take time to run for Mike Antonovich's seat, aren't we? That's not a good use of resources, is it? Why did he run for CD12 for re-election if he knew he was going to run for Mike Antonovich's seat, which is going to be more than a year off? It's not going to be till 2016. That's rather disingenuous, isn't it? So, if he wins, we get stuck with a multi-million-dollar midterm runoff, which will have to be mandated. If he doesn't win, then you got a guy that spent 2 years running for Mike Antonovich's seat and not spending 110% of his time in this.
Next.
Mr. Herman.
And is there one more card?
One more. David.
Wow. I don't know where Mr. Englander went, but he's sure not up front anymore. And I want to acknowledge that if you do decide to vote, think of how we've changed the matrix at City Hall by bringing in RYU. We have now an Asian American sitting in council versus all the hypocrisy and the racist horseshoe there who take away all our sidewalk and streets and provide all their special interest campaign special funds to do what they want, ad lib. But I'm not deterred to stop going and advocating on behalf of the elderly and the disabled, and more so for our officers in blue, rank and file, who should have gotten their damn raise when the mayor said, I'm giving them an 8% raise now, not in increments later. What a joke, Eric Garcetti, for the record. And I hold Eric Garcetti, for the record, to my life in the case of my demise, because again, I feel I'm being investigated by this panel who cannot take the criticism under the federal ruling of Judge Dean Ferguson, who ruled that our First Amendment right, we may use objective criticism, and only to improve the performance of your job, and your job, to listen to the public and take our concerns very serious, not only for your election, not only for those who pay you and pad your wallets to have the success that you have. Remember, we voted you in, we will not vote you back. So take it from us, Jack, we're back, even in the valley. Ha, ha, ha.
What's the next one?
David.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. We go to basic car meeting 17895, and we meet at St. Nicholas Church, and we have nothing but the highest praise for the officers there. And I have a plan for a program, a very simple program, and I've said this at meetings at the city council years ago. The schools, the churches, the television, radio, have messages, public messages that go out and say this: no matter what kind of a person you are, whether you're a gangbanger, you're a leftist, you're a rightist, you're whatever, when an officer pulls you over and wants to talk to you, it's yes, sir, no, sir, or yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I think that's a good concept. We've got to start in this country realizing there are good people, and they come in every race, creed, and color. And there are bad people, and they come in every race, creed, and color. And we all need to be held to the same standard. What a concept. Thank you. Love you guys. I've been in this city since 1966. No place on earth is perfect. Only heaven is perfect. And we hope to get there. But I'll say this: this is the greatest city in the world, and we have the best climate.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Closing comments, Mr. Englander, sir.
Yes. No,
he's here.
I just wanted to close the public comment by thanking all of you to come out. You get to experience a little bit of what we get to experience each and every day. Unfortunately, we do have the law where you're allowed to speak and say anything, and that's allowed by law. And we have a couple of clowns that show up every single time, the same guys that you might have seen recently, that they do this every day to a commission meeting, to the council meetings. And they show up every single time and speak on every single item. And I want to thank you guys for having the patience out here. These are folks that don't live over here, anywhere near here, but they show up to every meeting all over the city, and they do this. I want to thank the commissioners, particularly, because I said earlier, now, the chief and our officers put up with a lot. And you can imagine being a police officer where you're at people's homes in the most vulnerable times in a major incident, and what they're experiencing in their face all the time when people are going through the most dramatic things in their lives. Our police chief, who's dedicated 40 years to this city, Richard T. Fink, 50 years to public safety. But our two commissioners who are here this evening, Sandra and Steve, thank you so much, because they're putting up with this every day and still dedicating at least often 50 to 60 hours a week beyond the public comment that they're exposed to make sure they're doing the people's good. So I wanted to close and just say God bless you all, and thank you for coming out. Thank you for coming out here tonight. I really appreciate it.
Hi, this is Carretero Family.
We are from East Los Angeles, Boyle Heights. You're watching Channel 35, our city, our channel.
November 2012, work commenced on the largest and most ambitious runway maintenance project at Van Nuys Airport in over half a century. A $20.5 million plan to rehabilitate its historic 8,000-foot main runway, 16 right,